By this point, everyone has pretty much ganged up on Sar, and he's fighting for his life, doing absolutely everything he can just to hold them off. Saya watches with his mouth hanging open, then suddenly connects the dots and realizes everyone who's fighting right now had all eaten the crystal cores before. The realization made him feel uneasy, leaving him drenched in cold sweat. Our boy, meanwhile, tells Saya that at least he isn't completely hopeless. Saya goes on to lay out his thoughts, realizing the crystal cores clearly come with brutal side effects, ones that even 12th level folks can't resist. Furthermore, anger crept in as he decided the two officers were wildly irresponsible because something this serious deserved more than a casual warning or two. Anyway, he can't help feeling lucky, since he never got a single core along the way. What he once thought was bad luck suddenly looks like a blessing. Still, confusion follows right after. He asks himself why he was affected earlier despite never absorbing a single core. Could the side effects actually spread? That's when our boy immediately points out the obvious and tells him that what he said had nothing to do with it, and the reason he was affected was simply that he's weak. The comment stings hard, and Saya tries to protest and argue back, but after a moment of thought, he realizes that's painfully accurate, and his face turns bright red. Then he looks at Lu Sheng and quickly notices something strange. Since they are both 11th level, yet whatever he was about to say gets swallowed the moment he remembers how just mysterious and unreadable our guy felt to him. Lu Sheng, meanwhile, examines the situation and remarks that if his guess is right, then there must be something or someone not far from them affecting the magnetic field of the entire area. The two follow the direction of his gesture as he continues, noting that this presence amplifies emotions to an extreme level, making everyone irrational and violently unstable, as if they're being gripped by an unseen hand and toyed with at will. The realization leaves them shaken. They can't even imagine what kind of existence could pull off something like this. Lu Sheng further analyzes that it's magnifying the dark energy left inside the crystal cores by hundreds, even thousands of times, to the point that people nearby, who never absorbed anything, are still being affected. He then asks what kind of creature they think could do that. The question alone makes them gulp nervously. Tungsten is the first to connect the dots, immediately concluding that whatever it is must far surpass 12th level, possibly even a commander-level beast, or equivalent to the peak of 13th level. Seeing Lu Sheng didn't reject the idea, Saya, on the other hand, starts trembling and insists that it can't be right. He reasons that 13th level existences usually only show up in core star sectors, some even dominating in their respective star systems, and running into something like that the moment they step into the battlefield feels absurdly unfair. The thought alone makes his whole body shake, and no matter how hard he tries to calm down, the sheer cruelty of that luck completely overwhelms him. The two idiots can only cling to each other for comfort, silently agreeing that their situation is downright tragic. Lu Sheng, however, is already scanning the surroundings, because Huang Ji is nowhere to be seen anymore. Thinking back on Huang Ji's earlier actions, Lu Sheng analyzes that this clearly wasn't his first time here. In fact, he seems even more familiar with the battlefield than the two officers, so he must have sensed danger early and slipped away. By now, Tungsten has fully accepted Lu Sheng as the backbone of their little three-man squad, so he asks what they should do next, and whether they should leave as well. Saya, meanwhile, frankly tugs at Lu Sheng, insisting they need to run, immediately. He shouts at the top of his lungs, reasoning that they're talking about a 13th level beast. If they really run into something like that, none of them would even leave a complete corpse behind. His voice is loud enough to cut through the chaos, making the brawling crowd suddenly freeze and turn to stare at him. People begin closing in, and he instinctively backs up, asking why everyone is looking at him like that. That's when the fat dude finally steps in. He lets out a thunderous roar and demands to know if they all heard the part about a 13th level beast. Anyone who doesn't want to die needs to stop immediately. His aura erupts in an instant so overwhelming that it almost feels like Conqueror's haki, leaving everyone stunned on the spot and shocked by the officer's true strength. The fat guy crosses his arms and questions whether they really came all this way without understanding how the word danger is spelled. He looks at them with open disdain and tells them that even a tiny disturbance was enough to make them turn on each other. If they're so eager to die, they can keep fighting, because he's leaving first. Sar, however, refuses to believe there's actually a 13th level beast nearby. Hearing that, the fat guy just laughs. Sar questions what's so funny, and the officer explains that commander-class beasts naturally generate a dark force field that affects living beings within a certain range. What just happened to them was a direct result of being influenced by that field. Sar wants to argue back, but the others start discussing it among themselves. After all, if a force field alone can mess them up this badly, what would happen if they actually encountered the real deal? Some wondered if the gap between the 12th and 13th level really was that massive, and soon, fear began spread through the group. The fat guy shakes his head and notes that it's not quite that exaggerated. The real problem lies with them. He adds that if they hadn't swallowed the crystal cores directly and had instead waited to return to base to purify them with a special method, then the side effect wouldn't have been nearly as severe. That explanation only makes everyone angrier. Some reasoned that if there was a special method, why wasn't it mentioned earlier? They feel like they tore each other apart for nothing. The fat guy, however, reminds them that his job is simply to escort them to the base. He bluntly asks whether he looks like their daddy and why he should hand over secret techniques for free. Furthermore, he points out that he already warned them not to absorb the cores directly, and they ignored him anyway. The look of disgust flashes across his face as he further clarifies that before they reach the base, they don't even qualify as proper recruits. That was enough to shut everyone up. Still, the thought of a 13th level beast nearby sends another wave of panic through the group, and they start asking what they should do next. The fat guy softens slightly and tells them to relax. He notes that things aren't as bad as they're imagining, and explains that he has special scouting methods that can detect the general direction of a force field. As long as they detour around it, they'll be fine. The female officer then adds that unless they're extraordinarily unlucky, nothing will happen. She snaps her fingers, and a radar-like projection appears in the air, and she tells them that all they need to do is avoid the marked red zones. Seeing how calm the two officers are, everyone finally relaxes a little. As they study the coordinates, Saya is left stunned because the thing's location lines up exactly with the spot Lu Sheng pointed out earlier. That coincidence makes Lu Sheng seem even more mysterious in his eyes. Lu Sheng himself, meanwhile, appears lost in thought. Sar then starts complaining again, pressing them to explain what extraordinarily unlucky actually means and demanding they be more transparent. The two officers look a bit helpless, clearly fed up, but to keep him from causing more trouble, they explain anyway. Apparently, one possibility is that the beast suddenly changes position and runs straight into their detour. Another, even worse possibility, is that they've already been targeted. The explanation makes everyone's hair stand on end. All of a sudden, they can't shake the feeling that something unseen is watching them. At this point, no one dares to ask questions anymore, and no one causes trouble either. Still, a few people eventually realize that the first one to mention the 13th level beast was Saya. That said, most of the attention quickly shifts to Tungsten instead. After all, he's clearly the strongest in the squad, and no one believes a mere 11th level like Saya could actually notice something that important. Meanwhile, the fat officer also starts paying attention to Tungsten, but almost immediately realizes someone is missing from the team. Huang Ji is gone. His partner shrugs it off and remarks that it doesn't really matter, commenting that a seasoned old fox like that naturally has his own way of surviving, especially after staying alive through so many trips. With that small interruption over, the group continues moving forward. Saya quietly asks Lu Sheng whether it's really fine to just follow the officers like this. Lu Sheng notes that the emotional influence of the beast's force field feels somewhat similar to the emotion manipulation used in the divine crystal path. However, the psychic power he cultivated from it allows him to control 4 different emotions right now, which is already far stronger than what a 13th level beast has shown so far. Still, he can't be sure whether what they're feeling is only a tiny fraction of the beast's power, or if Old Duan's divine crystal path is simply far more terrifying than he originally thought. Personally, he leans toward the latter. After all, that path is considered a 15th level martial path, comparable to the stellar path itself. That realization makes him conclude that he should further temper his psychic strength and emotional control, as it could come in handy later. With that in mind, he starts training quietly while on the move. Under the guidance of the 2 officers, the team's route becomes erratic, with frequent detours and uneven stop times. They still run into more monsters now and then, but unlike before, no one seems particularly eager to fight anymore. Suddenly, the fat guy halts. Some people immediately grow anxious, wondering how long it will take to reach the base at this pace. Others start worrying about what happens if the commander beast catches up. Saya, meanwhile, discreetly asks Lu Sheng whether he thinks they can actually make it there alive. Tungsten can't help but ask, somewhat speechless, how an 11th level like him can be this timid. Saya fires back and asks whether Tungsten really isn't worried at all. Tungsten, instead, breaks into a grin and admits that he's actually kinda happy. Saya instantly decides his buddy must be insane. But Tungsten explains that what he's happy about is the fact that before leaving, his wife had just given birth to their 8th child. He even jokes that by the time he gets home, there might be a few more waiting for him. Saya is left utterly speechless. In his mind, how is it something to celebrate when you're away and your wife is having more babies? This bizarre exchange, however, actually traces back to our boy because his abilities have improved to the point where emotions now blend seamlessly into reality instead of feeling abrupt and artificial like before. Even so, the mention of children makes him think about his own. He can't help wondering whether by the time he returns to Yamu, he will get the chance to see his own child. Unfortunately, once inside the battlefield, all contact with the outside world is completely cut off, which is just another strange quirk of this space. While he's lost in thought, the fat guy closes his eyes and spreads out his mental perception. After a short while, he notes that it's safe to continue moving. That's when Saya suddenly realizes Sar is nowhere to be seen. Of course, Saya isn't the only one, but when the girl wanted to say something, he quickly cuts her off and decided to talk about it later. He notes that whatever happened can wait until they reach the base. Lu Sheng feels a little confused when Sar manages to leave the team without him even noticing, which feels kinda off. Though in most people's eyes, it doesn't seem like a bad thing. So no one really dwells on it. However, as they continue moving forward, things start turning strange. The team moves for more than half a day, but when they count heads again, 3 more people are missing. This time, even the 2 officers are getting anxious. Panic quietly spreads through the group. Some commented that somehow these people just vanish without a sound, and the thought that the next one could be them starts gnawing at everyone. A heavy, oppressive fear takes root, and Lu Sheng notes that something is seriously wrong now. By this point, the woman suspects the worst-case scenario has come true, and it has become painfully obvious that the beast has them locked on. She rushes over to her buddy and tells him they need to contact the base and request a 13th-level powerhouse to come pick them up. Turns out, the fat guy has already sent word to Lord Skeleton Blade, who is currently rushing over. Hearing that, the woman finally exhales in relief, remarking that if it's him, then the situation should still be manageable. Now all they can do is stay put and stall for time, hoping to meet up safely with the reinforcement. That said, they still need to inform the rest of the team to keep emotions from spiraling further. The 2 officers give a brief explanation to the group, glossing over the most alarming details. Even so, it's enough to calm everyone down a little. Saya's expression turns grim as he realizes they really have been targeted. Tungsten feels the same, but knowing a 13th level is coming to protect them makes him far less anxious. That's when Lu Sheng cuts in and rejects the optimism outright. He stares into the distance and slowly, deliberately asks them, what if, just what if, they don't make it in time to meet the reinforcement?